Hello and welcome to the Florida Golf Experience podcast. My name is Dan Henson. I'm your host. I'm a local realtor here in Florida and I love golf. So we are going to have an amazing guest for our first podcast. We have Gary Koch. I thank Chris Visser for helping us get together, and we can't wait to show you what Gary has going on. He is a six-time PGA winner. He has over 25 years with the NBC sports analyst, and he's also a winner of the Payne Stewart Award. So let's welcome Gary Koch. Very golf enthusiast as I am, but I learned a lot from Will, so that's why we got him with us because we're kind of starstruck with you here. So,
well, don't be. You guys are down in Sarasota?
I'm actually down in Babcock. I come from the east coast of Florida. I actually work for the Nicholas family. I've sold several PGA Tour player homes. So I know more Jupiter, Palm Beach Gardens, Martin County, that area.
Super.
Yeah, I'm in Sarasota. I just saw a story about you with your charity event. I was going to ask you about, I guess you have a young man that lives down here in Sarasota that, came from your family charity.
Yeah, he does. Works down there. One of the young men that from our first T chapter that received one of my foundation scholarships, went to the University of Florida, majored in environmental engineering, and is doing quite well with a firm down there. Yeah.
That's great. And then you got some help from your family foundation. It's actually one of the first things I wanted to kind of chat with you about is, you're a six-time PGA winner. You have the Payne Stewart Award, 25 years plus in the broadcasting world. You got a lot of amazing, I could go on and on with a list here, but I know that you're really, pride the Payne Stewart Award and, your family foundation, I think is a good stem of that.
Yeah, it really is. I've been involved with our first T chapter here in the Tampa Bay area for, probably the last 15 years. And especially over the course of the last 10 or 12, we've become very successful. Our fundraising has been great. And we're reaching a lot of kids. Technically, once the kids leave high school, say age 18, they age out of the first T program. And what I noticed was, here we are introducing a lot of these young people. A lot of them come from, lower socioeconomic backgrounds, underprivileged. We teach them the 9 core values. We introduce them to the game of golf. And then all of a sudden at age 18, we kind of just turn them loose.
Right.
So I really felt there was a need to provide educational opportunities for these 18-year-olds through scholarship funding. So I set up a family foundation. We've been very fortunate through some fundraising events and, of course, the Payne Stewart Award and money received from that to be able to really help some young first T graduates, as I call them, move on with their educations. It's amazing to see what these kids can do given the opportunity. I get a lot of very nice letters from parents. I get a lot of nice notes from their students saying that without this help, there's no way I would have been able to ever go to college. So what we're seeing too, Dan, is really fun. Is a lot of these kids that are on scholarship, when they come back into the Tampa area over maybe Christmas break or summer holidays, they come out to our first T chapter and volunteer to help out with the kids. So it's giving the younger kids a view of what's possible. If they continue to do well in school, these scholarship funds are there and available to them for them to be able to, hopefully go on and finish higher education. So it's been a very successful program. As I mentioned, our chapter has really become very successful from a fundraising standpoint. And as the chairman of the board of our board of directors, I got the board to agree that we would commit a minimum of $100,000 a year in college scholarships to our first T kids. So this past year, we were able to provide funds to over 40 kids and gave out just under $130,000 worth of scholarships. So we feel like we're not only introducing the kids to golf, we're teaching them the 9 core values, which will hopefully help them to become better people, but we're also assisting them in reaching a higher education level.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's a labor of love, huh? You had such a great career, and you get to pass it on and teach these kids how to contribute back. So it's amazing. I know Will has some good questions. One thing I did want to touch on, and I don't know if it's something you talk about a lot, is you're out designing golf courses. I kind of looked a little stuff up. Is that something you're doing a lot of now, or
No, not really. I was probably more active in golf course design through the late 90s up until the financial crisis in about 2008. It seemed
Gotcha.
like that was the heyday of when new courses were being built. I was fortunate to form a partnership with a gentleman by the name of Rick Robbins. Rick spent some time here in Tampa, also worked for the Nicholas Design Group at one point in time, and then went out on his own. Rick and I were fortunate enough to do, I guess, probably eight to 10 courses, new courses. I have since done some work, what I would call renovation or redos, a lot of them in the local area here in the Tampa Bay area. A course will be looking to refresh and try to modernize their course. I come in and act as a consultant, just kind of give them some ideas. We just finished doing exactly that at St. Pete Country Club, course that had been around right at 100 years. And through the years, it had undergone different, efforts at restoring it or renovating it. And a couple of different people had been involved. And it seemed like it had kind of lost its identity altogether. And the conditioning was not great. So, after COVID and the success of golf, it seemed like like a lot of places, St. Pete Country Club was full membership wise with a waiting list. So they had the funds to go ahead and do a renovation. And, we regrassed the entire place. We enlarged the greens, redid all the bunkering. And so far, it seems as though it just opened in November, and the members seem to really like it. So, that's very rewarding. It's fun to do. I always go in with the idea that the first question I ask whoever is asking me if I want to be involved or interviewing to be involved is, what are you looking for? Who's going to be playing the golf course? What type of course do you want to play? Do you want it for the members? 52 weeks out of the year, do you expect to have a big championship here and you want it set up for that? So I think listening to the client really plays a big part in what you try to do.
Oh, that's great. I know Will's been chomping the bit because he's such an avid golfer and had some great questions for you. So, Will, I know you had a good question that we were talking about earlier this morning. So, why don't you give him a shot at it?
Yeah. So first of all, backing up, I totally agree. I appreciate you teaching kids how to play golf. I've always said the younger we learn, the easier it is later in life. And you and I both know golf's one of the only games you can play your whole entire life. And that's why it's such a unique and great sport. I grew up with a family of golfers, but I didn't really take to golf too much. I was more of a tennis player and a surfer. But I'll never forget the 1986 Masters. That was the first tournament I watched where I really was like, holy, that's incredible. And watching Jack, on 15 and 16 and finishing like he did. I saw that you were actually in the group ahead of him. I'm just curious, what was, I'll never forget that tournament. I got a lot of friends agree with me on that. I'm just curious, what was your experience like during that, those final holes and hearing those growlies? And
yeah, it was unique. Well, no question about it. I had been on tour for about 10 years at that point, and having actually a good year myself in 1986.
You were
playing nicely, and entered the final round at 1 under par, and Jack was at 2 under par. So I was right there in the mix with a lot of other players, and played in the group in front of Jack and Sandy Lyle with Bob Tway.
Yeah.
And, we went around the front 9, and, everybody seemed to be playing okay, nothing great.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, Jack started making these birdies as he made the turn, and it got louder and louder.
Yeah.
And probably the most difficult part about it was typical. The gallery likes to move ahead. So
right.
they're in a position to be able to see Jack's shots, and especially when he started making that run. So it got to the point where Tway and I would kind of look back and see what was going on, if Jack was getting ready to play a shot or getting ready to hit a putt.
Right.
And finally, we got to the 15th hole. Both Bob and I hit the green in two. I actually made an eagle. Bob two putted for a
Wow.
birdie. We tried to hustle over to the 16th tee to get our tee shots away before Jack played into the 15th green.
Right.
Took a look back, and of course, he was over the ball. Hits this magnificent shot to 10 or 12 feet, and the place goes absolutely crazy. So we try to let it settle down. We both hit our tee shots on the green on 16. And literally jogged up to the green. We're
Wow.
trying to get ahead of what's going on. Look back, and sure enough, Bob putted, and then I was getting ready to putt. Looked over, and Jack was over the ball at 15, and of course he makes the eagle putt. The place goes absolutely crazy again. At that point, the hair on our arms were standing up.
Wow.
I can only imagine the energy and the adrenaline that Jack was feeling, because we were feeling it, and I literally was probably 140, 150 yards away.
Yeah.
We got to the 17th tee. Both Bob and I hit our tee shots, and just as we were walking off the tee, Jack hit his tee shot at 16, and of course that was the one that his son Jackie said, be right, and Jack turned to him and said, "It is," and ends up about 3 feet from the hole. Fortunately, we kind of got ahead. Bob and I got ahead a little bit, and we're actually up. Had already played our second shots on 18. We're heading up to the green at 18 when Jack made the putt at 17, which again created this incredible roar, energy in the air. At Augusta, with all the pine trees, it just seems like the noise echoes and just reverberates around, and almost amplifying it. And it was, it was one of the most exciting moments that I experienced in golf without it actually involving me. So,
Right.
Certainly one that sticks in the memories.
Yeah, Augusta is such a special place. It's amazing how many of those, I almost feel like the crowds energize, something's going on there, because, when Jack's grandson got the hole-in-one on the par 3, it's like everybody was willing the ball in. I just think that's such a special place, and I was lucky enough to be there one time. But, I got to say, if there's anybody that we should call Mr. Florida, it looks like it should be you. You won the Florida Open at 16. That's such an incredible thing. I mean, you're playing against pros, and then you go to Gainesville, and you're the first team All-American for 3 years, and then you win 4 of your 6 PGA Tour tournaments in Florida. I've actually sold Daniel Berger's house. I know Koepka. I don't see those guys on that board. You're a better Florida golfer. You truly came from Florida. I'm just curious, who else was out there with you?
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of that, Will, is, I learned to play the game here in Florida. So I was born in Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
Okay.
We moved to Sarasota when I was, 8 years old. And kind of an ironic story. I'm new in town. I don't know any other kids or whatever. I'm sure I'm being a real pain in the neck in the summer. And my mom ends up taking me to the city recreation department. Yeah. And lo and behold, they're having a golf clinic. Pat Hall, the gentleman who was the PGA professional at the municipal course there in Sarasota, Bobby Jones, which is still there.
Wow.
Was conducting a golf clinic, and I just, from that first day on, there was something about golf that just really appealed to me. I was an only child, and I think the aspect of being able to do it by yourself, I mean, I could practice by myself, I could go play by myself if I wanted to. Just had a certain appeal to it. I did play some other sports, Little League baseball, tennis. In fact, one of my favorite stories is from Sarasota. I pitched a Little League All-Star game when I was, 12. And it was the game where if we won, we got to leave town and go travel and go on to a regional tournament. I pitched well, struck out 12 and threw like a 3-hitter, and
wow.
The kids behind me couldn't catch or throw. and after we lost the game 5-4 in extra innings, I came out of the locker room, and a bunch of the kids were crying, and because we weren't going to get to travel and all this, we had lost the game. And my dad looked at me and he said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "I'm fine. Take me to the golf course tomorrow."
Nice.
That was kind of the end of my team sports until I got to college and played on a team there. But I just like the fact that it was on me, that I was responsible, and I could kind of dictate the results on my own.
Yeah, that's incredible, and that's another thing. Golf is you against the world. It's not a team sport. I try to explain that to my non-golfing friends. How good you really have to be in golf or in tennis to be one of the top in the world. So that's really cool.
Yeah, it is unique from that aspect. Well, no doubt. I mean, you don't have teammates. If you're having a bad day, you can't bring in a substitute. You can't call a
Right.
timeout. You have to work through it. And,
Yeah.
that's what the best players in the world do. They figure out what works for them when they're not on at their best, and how to get through those days and shoot decent scores when they're having it, when they quote an off day.
Yeah. Getting to that, now we're talking traditional golf, my thing. I love that, the PGA Tour players have to play 4 solid rounds in a row to actually win a tournament. What do you think about, Live and the TGL stuff? I mean, it's kind of fun to watch for a little bit, but I don't get the same feelings I get when I watch a tournament. And I'm one of those guys, I'll watch every day of the Masters, of the Open, any major, I'm watching all of it. What are your thoughts on those new leagues coming up? And
Well, I'm probably a little bit like you. I'm old school. I've been around for a long time, and I've competed at the highest levels.
yeah,
When I look at live golf, I see guys playing in shorts. I see a shotgun start. I see loud music. I see no cut. It reminds me a lot of a member guest event. And for it to be deemed as true competition, I just have a very hard time with it. Classic example, I was watching one of the very early ones the first year, and I didn't watch a lot of it, but I did try to watch it just to see what it was all about. The event was up in New Jersey. Henrik Stenson was trying to win his first on the LIV Tour. He was playing a very difficult par 3, the 17th hole, his next to last hole, because he was in the lead starting today, so he was teed off number 1. His closest competitor at that time was Matthew Wolff. Matthew Wolff was 7 under par for the day, and Matthew Wolff was finishing on the 4th hole, which was a very easy par 5. And I'm thinking to myself, part of competition in golf is me and going against you, you hitting a shot and me having to react to that shot.
Right.
Or you making a putt and me having a putt to top you. And those type things to me are what is great about the competition in golf. And if you've got one guy finishing on an easy par 5 on the 4th hole,
right,
when the other guy who's one shot ahead of him is finishing on a difficult hole on the other 9, that's not true competition.
No.
I feel like I need to be looking you in the eye. You need to be looking me in the eye, and we need to figure out who can produce when it counts.
Yeah.
So the TGL stuff, I've watched some. I think it probably is, the future of some form of golf.
Right.
I think it's accomplishing what it set out to do, which is attract a much younger audience, one that is used to playing and watching videos and playing video games.
Yeah.
I also think it has brought in an element that they were probably trying to capture as well, and that's the betting world. You can bet on every single shot. And,
really?
that seems to be more and more popular these days. You're on your phone and you look at DraftKings or FanDuel or whatever, and you can bet on whether Rory McIlroy's shot at TGL is going to be closer to the hole than Tiger Woods' shot.
Yeah.
So I don't particularly care for all that. I understand that it's where money is made and so forth and so on. It seems to be, and I caught a little bit of the one last night as well. It seems to be getting a little better. I'd like to see a little. It's very difficult when you have all the players mic'd up and you have announcers. Oftentimes the announcers, and they don't talk a lot, but there are times when they talk, and of course the players are talking. Well, I want to hear the players talking. I don't need to hear the announcers.
Right.
We used to do an event called the ADT Skills Challenge. And we had all the players mic'd, but we taped it. So after it was all taped, edited, and put together, Dan Hicks and I would spend probably 12 hours in a day in a studio putting the voiceover to the taped skills challenge. But what it did was it allowed us to always get out when there was a very good exchange between the players
Mm-hmm.
because it had been edited. And then we would have headsets on. Dan and I would be talking, and all of a sudden the producer of the show would say, okay, here comes Jacobson's line in 10, 9, 8. Boom, we'd get out. You could clearly hear it. Yeah. And there's just none of it. When you do it live, it's very, very difficult for that.
Yeah. Very interesting.
Well, it's funny. I love your story about how you were down here at Bobby Jones, because that's kind of where my son started, where his golf career. We got him, he was playing Little League ball, and he decided he wanted to play golf, and he started taking his lessons at Bobby Jones with a pro named Christian Martin, and now the kid shoots in the 70s. Now he's at kind of not your favorite place, but he's at FSU for his final semester. But well, he does call me and tell me he gets around in every week, so I'm jealous of that. Great. But great story there. I appreciate it. I don't want to take too much of your time, but I did want to kind of talk about Florida courses a little bit. And now you've won on a couple here, and I know you won at Bay Hill, but what do you think that a couple of the toughest courses are here in Florida?
Well, I think obviously Bay Hill, and especially the way the PGA Tour has set it up for the Arnold Palmer Invitational the last few years. I mean, you look at the winning score; it's just been, 5 under, 9 under, something like that. That's rare, very rare, when a PGA Tour event is being held. To be honest, I think it's probably just the way Arnold would have loved it. The rough is long, the greens are hard and fast.
Yeah.
He was a man's man, and he would want to have tested the best players under the most difficult conditions. The Copperhead course at Innisbrook is another, what I would call very good golf course. Usually the winning score there is maybe just into double digits under par. What I like about that course, it's very unique for Florida. Elevation changes of, up to 40 and 50 feet on some of the holes. Virtually no water. I think it's in play on 2 or 3 holes on the entire course. Very few palm trees. It's all oak trees and pines. You get a feeling more that you're in maybe North Carolina than you are in Florida. Mm-hmm. The other thing I like about the Copperhead course, you look at the list of winners. There have been short hitters, kind of control players like Jim Furyk and Luke Donald, power players like Vijay Singh, Gary Woodland, Retief Goosen. So it really doesn't favor any one type of player. And I think that is one thing that all professionals like. They like to go to places where they don't feel like they're at a disadvantage because of the design of the golf course. Doral was always a challenge. And a lot of that had to do with the weather conditions. We'd play in March down there, and the wind was usually a big factor. I know the year that I won at Doral, we actually had winds on the Sunday so high as a front move through that they canceled play, and we actually ended up finishing on Monday. But after the front had gone through, the winds were gusting to 25 miles an hour, and any golf course in those conditions is difficult, but especially Doral with all the water there, it was always known as a tough course. And then, a lot of guys will tell you that the TPC Sawgrass is very difficult. If you can control your ball and put it where it needs to be, it can be had. But if you're off a little bit at that stadium course, you'll pay the price, and shooting a good score is pretty difficult to do.
Yeah. We were talking about those. Are you going to be at Valspar this year? You're going to go by and watch what's going on?
I will be. In fact, I just found out recently that NBC has asked me to come back and be a part of the broadcast at the Players, also the Valspar Championship, and the U.S. Open. So
awesome!
Oh, that's great.
Look forward to being a part of all 3 of those. I look forward to seeing you there.
I told Chris I was going to try to come up, and he's like, "Yeah, let's get you on a media pass and get you up there." So I'm going to be there.
Great.
I used to take my son to that golf course, that tournament all the time when he was younger. So that's great. You got something else you need to?
Back to your finishing holes, and I totally agree. These golf courses are set up to have great finishing holes, and I got to throw out, the Bears Trap, the Honda Classic, or now it's called the Cognizant. I go to that every year. And, we've got so many good courses, but I'm buddies with Tom Gillis, who tied Tiger for second there a few years back. And he had always told me that was one of the hardest courses on.
I would agree with that. There's a fear factor on that golf course, unlike any other. it was certainly, Jack redid it years ago, and when he did, he put that fear factor into that finish, no question. 15 and 17, two of the more difficult par threes you'll ever play, especially if the
Yeah,
wind's blowing.
exactly. Yeah.
There's been a lot of horror stories at those
Yeah,
holes, that's
we
for
got
sure.
we got no shortage of hard courses in Florida, and I tell everybody I think Jack makes his signature courses hard just to humble us regular Joes. So I appreciate it. It is makes you really appreciate what you guys do out there.
Yeah, definitely. Gary, is there any final things you got going on that people need to know about? We appreciate your time so much and taking time for
No,
us.
not really. Like I said, still heavily involved with the First Tee of Tampa Bay. We have our big annual gala coming up in April. We've been very fortunate through the years. We've had Jack Nicklaus as one of our featured guests. We've had Annika Sorenstam. We've had Jay Monahan, Mike Tirico, Nick Price. This year we're going to have Paul Azinger as our featured guest.
Wow.
We do an amazing auction and give from the heart, and I'm happy to say that over the last 6 or 7 years, we've raised well over $1 million each night for that. So
Wow.
Wow,
that's
great.
coming up in April. So we're working hard on that, trying to make sure that it'll be another success. And, with those highly successful fundraising events, we were able to build a short course at our First Tee facility, a little 9-hole par 3 course that is exclusively for our First Tee kids, and it's been a big success. It's been used quite a bit. It's open to the public when we're not using it, and the public has enjoyed using it as well. But it's through those fundraising efforts that we were able to do that and accomplish that. So we've got a lot of big goals in mind, and we've got a lot of hard work to do, but we'll keep at it.
That's awesome.
I really appreciate your time today, and again, it's an honor. Thank you for taking the time with Will and myself, and I look forward to seeing you at Valspar. I hope we can shake hands up there, and congratulations on being back in the broadcasting.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
So thank you so much for joining us here at the Florida Golf Experience. We look forward to seeing you on the next one. Thank you, Gary, so much for coming on. Will was a great help, and we look forward to seeing you on the next podcast. Thank you so much.